Hey, everybody, and welcome to day 19 of the Supernatural Weight Loss Challenge. It's day 19. That means we are at July 19th. We are more done with the month than we have to complete. This month only goes for 31 days. Tomorrow is going to be the 20th. That gives us 11 more days to really keep going and pushing and striving and moving forward in our challenge. So, as I've been doing throughout this whole entire challenge, I have been looking up what the number days mean in the Bible or according to biblical principles. So, 19, I looked it up. But before I get into what 19 means, today we are talking about rejecting the patterns, right? We want to make sure that as we're progressing in this challenge, we want to be rejecting patterns that could be trying to grab us or hold us or keep us bound up, that could be trying to keep us in repetitive cycles of trauma. If we're used to doing something a certain way and it's not good for us, whether it's eating, whether it's negative thinking, whether it's taking on too much or having no boundaries or saying yes to everybody even though we don't want to, we are now putting a stop. We're putting our hand up and we are rejecting those patterns. We're taking a moment on day 19 to reject the patterns that have not brought us any closer to our goals, to accomplishing our visions, to doing what we need to do. If we notice that we are in a cycle and we can't get out, we have the authority and the power given to us to say, stop. I'm going to reject the pattern. Hey, Prophetess Sherry, how are you? God bless you. Hey, Sister Alberta, God bless you. Love you both. This is the thing that we need to do is to reject the patterns that we literally put up a stop sign, not a yield sign. We don't want them to slow down. We want them to stop. We reject the patterns that keep us in a vortex of trauma, of guilt, of shame, of procrastination, of unproductivity, right? That the patterns that we're so used to doing. And if we call ourselves healed and whole and more mature and walking into spaces, sometimes it's so easy to slip back into those patterns. But now we take a moment, we're aware, we're alert that we are going to reject those patterns. If we should feel ourselves falling back into those patterns, right? Sometimes at the end of a challenge, you start to get weary, you start to get tired, you start to say, I don't really want to do this anymore. We've been going strong for 19 days. This is around the time when we're like, you know what? I can go back to doing what I was doing. I can go back to thinking negatively. I can go back to speaking down about myself, to not show myself any grace or love. Or I can go back to poor eating. I can go back to eating large portions and heavy carbs and a lot of sugars and all that. But if we decide to reject the patterns, if we decide to say that we're not interested in what we're doing anymore, that we want to change, we want to have a different outcome, then we reject the pattern. We make up in our mind to see the pattern and to say, I don't want it anymore. Oh, we know that what happens in our families becomes who we are. So let's say our grandmother was used to doing a certain thing, our grandfather, our uncle, our aunt, our mothers, our cousins, our older siblings were used to doing things a certain way. That could be even reacting to situations with anxiety. That could be having a big attitude or cussing people out. That could be fight or flight. That could be running away from certain circumstances that are good for you, but we're so scared of success that we just run away. Those are the patterns that we're rejecting. And trust me, I'm speaking to you, but I'm also speaking to myself. You notice patterns and cycles that you're getting into. And the challenge is like a pebble in the road. So we're driving along on our bike in the same pattern that we've been, and the challenge or a new thought process comes, and it is the thing that knocks us off our bike and makes us stand up, and then we can choose which way we want to go. So we reject the patterns that no longer serve us and no longer serve God. We get those patterns out of here, or we at least start the process of undoing the patterns, of moving on and keeping going. So day 19 is it denotes God's perfect order concerning his judgment in the Bible. So it says the names Job and Eve. If we substitute the letters for numbers, add up to 19. So if we're talking about perfect order, then we are talking about rejecting patterns, right? I'm not talking about good patterns or patterns that have brought us good success or habits that we want to form that are perfect. I'm talking about God's perfect order, which means that we cannot have patterns that are negative, patterns that are taking us off our course, patterns that are having us move in spaces and places and be around people that just aren't working for us anymore. If we want to focus on God's perfect order, then we have to stop doing some things that no longer work for us, that no longer serve us. We have to stop doing those things. There was also something else that I saw. Oh, there were 19 judges who were able to be in the book of Judges and helping people out, helping the nation of Israel out. You know, when you look at what happened, the the nation of Israel, the children of Israel, they got in a pattern. They would serve God, right? Then they would be pulled aside and pulled every which way, and they would get back into a pattern of not serving God, of worshiping idols, doing things on their own. Then what would happen? God would send their enemies to destroy them and a judge to talk to them, to oversee them, and they would be good for a little bit, right? Oh, they would be great, they'd be wonderful. And then what would happen? They'd get back into the pattern. So day 19 represents us pulling ourselves out of the pattern. And you know what? Not just ourselves. If we see somebody else in the pattern, then it's so important for us to pull them out too. We are consciously deciding to reject patterns that don't serve us anymore, patterns that no longer are good for us, that say to us, "Oh, you can't do that," or "You're always going to be this way," or "Why are you trying to do that? That you can't do that." No, no. We're rejecting those thoughts that are circulating in our brain, whether it's eating. Oh, why are you trying to stop eating that? You know you want it. If it's not good for us, we have to reject the pattern. If the goal is to get healthy, if the goal is to supernaturally lose weight in our mind, our body, and our soul, there are certain patterns that we have to turn away from us. We literally have to put our hand out as a stop sign to those patterns. When they start to rise up, when they start to come up, we have to reject them. And if we feel ourselves doing them again, it's so important for us to be aware and mindful of what we're doing. And it's really good to be around accountability partners who will not let you get back in the same repetitive cycle of negativity, of overeating, of disconnection from God. Who we're around really matters. The patterns, the patterns that no longer serve us, they have to be rejected. So this is it. I'm not going to be before you long. I told you every day. I really hope that you got a chance to get your Selah in today, your reflective rest, your chill time, whether you were reading a book or just laying, listening to music, all technology gone, that you allowed your body to recharge and refresh. The day is still young. It's just 4 o'clock. I hope you were able to move your body. I had to come into work today, so I'm going to be on the train, walking and moving, getting our bodies moving, whether that's walking, swimming, running, dancing. Just get the body moving. We want to make sure that we're taking care of our joints and ligaments. And we're reading the book of Proverbs. I will always say this, even after the challenge. If we're losing weight in our mind, body, and spirit, then we have to make sure that we're replacing it with something because there's going to be a void. You lose weight, there's going to be a void. Your body starts to adjust, there's going to be empty spaces. We want to fill it with the wisdom of God. There's no better substance, there's no better nourishment for us than the word of God, than the wisdom of God. So I want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to stay on this challenge. It's day 19. We are rejecting patterns that do not serve us anymore, that have expired, that they are leading us away from our purpose, away from God's will, into spaces of darkness and negativity. Those are the patterns that we want to reject. We want to put our hand out and say, no more. We are lining up with God's perfect order. And we are making sure that we're aware of the path that we are choosing. If we decide to reject a pattern, then that's a growth mindset because we're saying, I'm choosing a different way of thinking. I'm choosing a different way of doing something. And so when we're knocked off of our regular pattern, when we get up, we can choose to go left or right. We choose the pattern, we choose the path. And I don't know about you, but I want to follow God's path even after this challenge because His path is sure, it's resolute, and the foundation cannot crumble. So be aware today of the patterns that are going to try to come up, patterns of negative thinking, self hatred. Think of the things that might try to come up. You might be enticed or tempted to keep overeating, to eat that big abundance of sweets, drink all that soda. It's okay to be tempted. It's what you do with the temptation. Jesus was tempted, so we know it's not a sin. But what do you do with the temptation? Reject the pattern. Even if you need to physically put your hand up to signify that you're rejecting it, make sure that we are taking this time to reject the patterns that no longer serve us. They have no place in our life, and they only cause detriment to happen. I pray that you get your chance. I'm going to say this again. Get your Selah in today. It's hot outside where I am. The sun zaps our energy. We need to make sure we are restored, refreshed, and renewed. No better way to do that than for us to rest and get our Selah in, for us to process and reflect over everything that's happened in our day, or maybe something that happened last week, but we didn't give ourselves the time to reflect. Let's sit in quiet, contemplative reflection as we allow our bodies just to rest. And then we get our bodies moving so we can supernaturally lose weight in our entire being. Love you so much. See you tomorrow for day 20. Tomorrow's day 20 of July. I feel like we just started. Thank you for everyone who's been coming on, logging on. If you haven't been as consistent as you want to be, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Just keep going. You got this. We got this. And we're going to do this together. I can't wait for the big reveal on August 1st. Even if it's not physically, mentally, spiritually, how are we going to be? What is our mindset going to be? What are our spirits going to look like? How closer to God will we be? Can't wait to see it and can't wait to celebrate and debrief with you. Love you so much. See you tomorrow for day 20. Selah.